exciting. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Just a few housekeeping things. We've got exits labeled there in the corner back there. There's one over here, and of course out the main doors. Please also turn your cell phones off so we don't interrupt our speaker. Which reminds me, I better turn mine off. We had a pretty nice schedule of outings this summer. Are any of our outing leaders here? If you are, would you please stand up, whether you were a backpack or a hike or a paddle or a bike ride? We have some outing leaders, and without outing leaders, we wouldn't have the trips that we have. And also, do we have any first-time attendees here? First time here at a chapter meeting. How about standing up? Nice hand for you guys. Thank you. Don't be bashful, okay? This is not a hostile crowd, so we're welcome. We're happy to have you. What about any folks that became a 46er over the summer? Don, stand up. I know you're in that group. Before I get going too much further, I would like to ask for just a moment of silence in remembrance of those folks that were killed in the horrific attacks on the U.S. 23 years ago from today. Individuals, innocent individuals, first responders, heroes, many of them. So I'd like to ask please for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Oh, how about that nice workshop that we had with the nice presenters, right? Yeah. Really nice stuff here. As those of you that were here in June know that we had 4 inductees into the High Summit Honor Society. High Summit Honor Society is a very prestigious award that our chapter makes to individuals that have gone above and beyond the call of duty, really. Sometimes over the course of many years, often without recognition. And our 4 inductees were Tom Vinci, Bill Lindenfelser, Jack Schroeder, and Bruce Tahan. Okay, and 3 of the 4 are here. You guys raise your hands, okay? Our fifth inductee, Carol Thiel, could not make it that night in June, but she's here tonight. Carol, come on up here. I'm going to have to read this because your accomplishments are so many, I wouldn't be able to remember them. But Carol served our chapter in multiple ways over the years and was especially active in the 1990s. Carol joined ADK and GVC in 1991. Her most notable role was as coordinator of the group that organized the ADK Spring Fling at Mendon Ponds Park in 1998, which was the precursor to ADK Outdoor Expo. Carol served as chapter secretary 1995 to 1997. She also was the trails/land coordinator. She's led both overnight outings to the Adirondacks and numerous local day hikes and bikes for our chapter. Of particular note, she researched and led a number of history-themed hike and bike outings, both in the city and in the villages. She also led workshops at the early Spring Fling Expos, and Carol donated several original paintings in past years to be sold in the Maine Club's annual auction. She also served on the Genesee and Labeling Committee, which was no small task because there were around 1,200 copies that had to be appropriately labeled per USPS standards. A very time-consuming endeavor. Carol became 46er, and 46er number 3493 in 1994. So tonight, it gives me great pleasure to recognize Carol and present her with this certificate as a member of the High Summit Honor Society. Carol's name will be presented on this plaque that will be displayed, I guess, at every chapter meeting, right, Dave? So feel free to come on up here and catch the names. Some very notable individuals for our chapter. Okay, with that, we've got some folks that want to make some announcements. I've got one, just real quick, okay? Outdoor Leadership 101. We have a class scheduled for November 9th here locally. And if you're an existing level 1 certified outing leader, would like to obtain level 2, or if you're maybe not yet certified but are interested in becoming an outing leader, you may want to sign up for this class. The information's on our website. We still have a few openings. Attendance is going to be capped at 25. I think I've still got 2 or 3 openings if you think you might be interested. And by the way, that's a no-cost class. It's all day on Saturday, November 9th. If you think you might be interested in attending that, please see me, okay? Let me know, send me an email, whatever. See me after the program. Okay, Dave, you're up.
Thanks, Ryder. My name is Dave Nichols. I'm past chair, and one of the duties is to work with every one of you to identify those significant volunteers who are worthy of the High Summit Honor Society. Carol was just presented with that. We also have another honor award, and that's Volunteer of the Year. So the High Summit Honor Society recognizes those people who have contributed to the chapter over many years. The Volunteer of the Year is to recognize the individual or individuals who have made significant or extraordinary contributions over this past year. I'm now seeking nominees for the Volunteer of the Year award. We plan to give it out or present it in November. So that means if you're thinking about nominating somebody, and I'm sure many of you are, right? Right? Because this chapter only works because of volunteers. That's how everything gets done, is only by volunteers. So if you're thinking of nominating somebody, please send me an email with your nomination. You can send it to pastchair@adk-gvc.org. I'm in the Tennessean, Dave Nichols again. So thank you very much for any nominations that you wish to submit. Thanks.
Hi, you probably know me from being the hostess up front. I also have, for the last 17 years, had another title. Larry Tully and myself have been in charge of doing the setup for the expo for 17 years. And as of this summer, I have resigned, so that position's open. I'm just waiting for all the people to flood in that want to compete for this position. So I'm taking nominations for that, and we'll try to find the best person to do that. So thank you.
I'd just like to add to what Tom said, you know, and Tom and Larry have done a phenomenal job over the years, but you're not alone, okay? You've got a team of volunteers that typically show many hands make light work, right? And so you're kind of the overseer of that operation, but you're not alone, okay? So as Tom said, we really would be appreciative of anybody stepping into Tom's role, who's done a phenomenal job. Thanks, Tom.
I have a one-question poll. How many people remember New Year's Eve? New Year's Eve. How many remember New Year's Eve? Maybe half. So this is your last chance to fulfill your 2024 for New Year's Eve resolution to volunteer for trail work. Next, well, September 28th, we're going to be working on the Finger Lakes Trail portion that we maintain. So I'm going to pass, I'm going to pass around the sign-up sheet. You can sign up online, contact me as the Finger Lakes Trail steward. So that's the first thing I've got on my list here. The second one, this Saturday, there's a hike on our Finger Lakes Trail that we maintain. Karen Gotchell's leading that hike. It's a section of the trail that we maintain. So you're going to get a chance to see the trail unmaintained. And next weekend, we can go back and clean it up. The third thing, and maybe Karen got a lot of people, and I got a few. The Shoe family gave a permanent easement to Finger Lakes Trail to allow the Finger Lakes Trail to run through their property. And it's a piece of the Finger Lakes Trail that we maintain. So thank them for doing that, which is a really big deal. I mean, there's over 700 landowners that have allowed the trail to run through their property. Maybe only about 50 that gave permanent easements. So we wanted to thank them for that. So we've got this puzzle over here that you may have seen on the table. And what we're going to do is present them with that puzzle, and we're going to have all the members sign pieces of the puzzle on the back. And a lot of you have already done that, but I'll hang around afterwards. And if you haven't, please stop over and sign a piece of the puzzle. I think that's it. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to our program chair, Katie Cusick, to formally introduce our guest speaker, Pat Cullinan, in just a minute. But I just want to relate to you a little story. I met Pat when I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail. And I was with a group of 3 other guys at the time we met Pat. We called ourselves the Four Horsemen because we thought, man, we're pounding out this trail, right? And like nobody's business. Until we met Pat, right? And we were eating Pat's stuff pretty much from that point on, because he's an extremely strong hiker, and I really enjoyed his company. And you know, when we first met Pat, he didn't have a trail name yet. So, you know, we were wondering, okay, you know, me and the horsemen, we said, what are we gonna call Pat? We bantered around a few names, but we finally settled on T5000. Those of you are familiar with the Terminator sequence of movies, right? The cyborgs, because when Pat motored, he motored, okay? And he was really a lot of fun to be with on the trail, but we were pretty much eating Pat's stuff for whenever we were hiking together. But Katie, why don't you come out and do a formal introduction to Pat?
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to be in trouble, Katie. I'm sorry. Jackson's giving me the evil eye over here. Okay, I'm sorry, Jackson. You don't need a microphone, okay?
He did it again. Hi, everybody! GVC Bookstore. ADK merchandise. After the program. Be there or be square.
Lots of back to follow. Hi everybody, I'm Katie Cusick. I'm the program's chair. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're very excited to have Pat Cullinan, did I say that right? Cullinan here with us tonight. He's going to recount the lessons he learned long distance hiking the 7,500 miles on the Appalachian, Continental Divide, and Pacific Crest Trails. So before we have him come up, I just want to plug next month's presentation is going to be Melanie Sawyer, who I don't know if anybody watches the show Alone. Is anybody familiar with the Alone series? Okay, great. She was a participant in last year's Alone show, and she was the last woman standing. And she lives in the Adirondacks, so she'll be coming down next month. But without further ado, please welcome Pat Cullinan.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Great. Like Ola, as I know, said, I'm Pat Cullinan. I'm just a few hours down south from Pittsburgh there. Here to talk about, what I learned hiking America's Triple Crown. But as Opa said, we met in 2018. I don't think he's given himself enough credit as a 66-year-old out hiking the trail. He was hiking pretty dang good. I mean, we really were neck and neck. Maybe I got to camp maybe an hour or two before him, but he was still right there with me. So I actually kind of got, we've stayed in touch over the years, Opa and I, but it was earlier in the year I was actually looking for a few more copies of his book. He didn't pay me, but I was asking where I could get some, and he said he was looking for a speaker for tonight, so I'm happy to be here tonight. I've actually never given a talk on any of these hikes, really. Even in casual conversation, I don't really bring it up much. I find that people don't even really know what I'm talking about sometimes. They're like, you went on some camping trip or something, and yeah, something like that, generally. But, so we'll go ahead and just kind of get right into things. Just a quick disclaimer though, this is not a section-by-section account of the trails. We've got over 7,500 miles of hiking. If you're looking for kind of a mile-by-mile account of things, that's not the case here. We're going to be talking really about lessons I learned throughout this trip, kind of as it relates to hiking and a few other things. So, also, I think as long as I manage my time correctly, we should have some time at the end for questions as well. So, alrighty, well. I guess if you're not too familiar, obviously the Triple Crown here, the three major long-distance hiking trails in the U.S., the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and Appalachian Trail there. You can see the distances on there and how they vary, and then as well the years I hiked those. So started with the Appalachian Trail, but we'll go back to kind of the way beginning just for a second here. I didn't do a whole lot of hiking growing up. We weren't out camping every weekend and that sort of thing. And I only bring that up to say it's really anybody can get into something like this at any age. My first real trip camping outside the tent that wasn't the backyard was on the C&O Canal towpath. Being from Pittsburgh, there was a teacher that was taking some students on that. So that was my first time camping and kind of being in a tent. And the whole time biking along this bike path, I thought, I wonder what's back there in the woods over there, and where does that trail go? And so, kind of got hooked and got on some trails around the Pittsburgh area, Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail, Allegheny National Forest, Black Forest Trail, some of those. So, didn't really have sights on the Appalachian Trail, but I discovered the Vermont Long Trail. That was kind of my first big undertaking there. So, did that trail in May of 2015. And learned a lot on that. You can kind of see here my first setup. I like to call that the party pack. Nice and big and bring everything that you can imagine in there. But started that one alone. As with every other hike I've ever done, it's always alone. It's hard to find a friend that, hey, you know what? Let's quit our jobs and go on a couple month-long hike. It's not an easy sell, but met an awesome group of people. And kind of the first lesson I learned with any of these long hikes is that it's really just one 4 or 5 day trip after another. If you can do that, you can really do any of these hikes. That's really all it is. So after doing that trip, went off to college at Ohio State and actually did the Appalachian Trail in between my junior and senior year. Getting on that trail there, like I said, 2018 in the spring. So I started February 6th, pretty early start date, but I was itching to get going. When you take spring semester off and you're sitting at home with your parents, you think, you know what, I could be in Georgia right now making some progress. So went on down there, and of course, staring down over 2,000 miles of hiking, you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? This is quite the undertaking. This isn't 273 miles through Vermont. So my mom saw me off, and that was nice to say goodbye to her and get started on my 2,000-mile walk, only to call her 3 miles later and say, can you come back? I left my fuel canister in the car, and I really would like some hot food tonight. And that was something that really, at least to start, I kind of called it going down the spiral of, oh my gosh, at mile negative 5.8, I'm still on the approach trail to the trail that's 2,000 miles, and I'm calling mom for help. So lesson there, avoid the spiral. It's easy to get into, but so obviously getting to the start there of Springer, and off we go. So quickly already we find ourselves in North Carolina. Told you we'd go fast, and kind of started getting into some planning. And this is where I kind of found, you you've got your maps and you're figuring out where am I going to be tonight, maybe I'll be here, but maybe I can do this many miles to get there. You find out pretty quickly after 2 or 3 days of rain, all of that is down the drain, so you can't really rely on much planning. So learning from that, plans are guidelines, not directives. It's nice to have a general idea, but it's you have to remain very flexible. So another thing you learn on the AT starting in February going north, not about the views. You're not going to get much of any. North, south, east, west, doesn't really matter. It's more about kind of the feeling you have in that, this photo, nothing deceived, I still remember the sound of the wind coming through the trees there and kind of almost the smell of the fog or clouds, if you will. So you learn to forego views. But really quickly found myself at the furthest distance I had ever gone on a single trip here in Hot Springs, North Carolina. Further than I did on the Long Trail just a few years earlier. I was pretty proud of that, and this hostel here had a map where you could see the whole trail, and I realized I wasn't even on the map as far as how far I had to go. So you think I've gone the furthest I've gone, oh boy, but lesson on that, don't think too far ahead. I really never thought much further than the next town I was getting into, or the next burger, or whatever it was. Some days it really is as small as, okay, that tree, we'll get to that tree, and then we'll figure out if we're going to keep going from there. But it was around this time I ran into the legendary legends on the trail. You heard about these guys for miles, the 4 horsemen. These guys were hiking machines. They were a ton of fun, and they were kind of the first group that I met and linked up with. And from that, different people kind of come and go into these groups. A lot of people start trails like this alone, and you kind of end up meeting other people along the way. It's not really anything coordinated. It's more, I'm doing about the same mileage as you, and we might end up at the same place tonight. And what do you know, we're at the same place the next night. The next night, you kind of get to know each other. So this was the group I ended up actually kind of sticking with, I want to say, from probably Southern Virginia until the very end, actually. So well over 1,000 miles together, all of us. Starting left to right there, Sour Patch, Captain Blackbeard, Maynard, Ghost, and then myself there, Team 5000. But a lot of interesting names, all different backgrounds. College swimmer, Captain Blackbeard was actually a pirate. He would work on a pirate ship and do shows for people and stuff. Maynard was a carpenter and a painter. Ghost was from a similar background. So you kind of, like I said, link up with these people and you end up making really great friendships. But lesson there, don't force those friendships. I think a lot of people feel pressure to kind of get with a group quickly. That's something you really want to have come together naturally. Like I said, whether it's, you both kind of have to have the same, I don't know, I guess habits, if you will, on trail in order to make things work. So quickly, again, starting in February, found ourselves with plenty of snow to contend with. Getting into Virginia, it seemed like every other day it was snowstorm, muddy, wet, snowstorm, muddy, wet, snowstorm, muddy, wet. So your feet definitely take a beating there. We'll see if I can get this to play here. Oh yeah, that's a frozen sock there. That was actually after sitting in the hostel for a little while as well. But at this point too, shoes are getting beat up. Trail runners last, depending on your pain tolerance, 450 to 600 miles. So that's starting to hamper things and impact your feet. Can cause some problems for some folks, but definitely lesson, take care of your feet. They're helping you every single step of the way. So get those new shoes early, keep those feet dry, all that good stuff. So already find ourselves in Harper's Ferry. This is actually going across the Potomac on the same bike path that I rode across a few years earlier. So kind of bringing it all back around. But getting into Pennsylvania, halfway point, New Jersey, New York, told you we were going quick, and then into Connecticut. At this point, we were, I wouldn't say getting bored with the trail, but we were hiking machines, and so we decided to do the state of Connecticut in a day. We started at midnight, we hiked 53.3 miles in 21 and a half hours. So even standing up here, I think, I can't imagine doing that, and that's just lesson there, the miles will come. By this point, you've been hiking for, probably close to 100 days. Don't be in a rush. I got to hurry up and hit 15 miles a day, 20 miles a day. It'll come. Don't worry about it. So get up into Vermont, back on the Vermont Long Trail, into the White Mountains. Really beautiful hiking. Onto Mount Washington there. I know Oakwood and I were talking on the way down about this photo here on the right. I'm not that strong by any means. That was just a very well-timed photo of me jumping. So if anyone's curious, it does get very windy on Mount Washington. But still a lot of snow left over through there in some sections. So that was neat to see. This is coming up from Pinkham Notch. Actually, the steepest section on the AT. But at this point, really getting beaten down. This is, I mean, everyone here probably knows, whether it's Adirondacks or the White Mountains, extremely hard hiking, rocky, rooty, wet. I mean, just very difficult. And we were beat up. You know, we had gone from, hey, 25 mile a day, no problem, to, you think we'll get 16 today? I don't know. So definitely learned here, drop the ego, slow down when you need to, don't have arbitrary mileage goals. You'll just get frustrated and end up getting hurt. So crossing the 2,000 mile mark, going over Bigelow Mountains, and 131 days later, reaching Mount Katahdin there. So it's it kind of feels weird to sum up, you know, such a huge experience into 10 minutes there, but I guess we got to keep moving. But obviously, you know, like I said, finish with that group there. Ghost had to peel off at Harper's Ferry, but Captain Blackbeard, Sour Patch, and Maynard made it along the way. So that was the end for me of hiking, and I thought, great, don't need to do that again. That was awesome, wonderful. So moved to Vermont with my then fiance Margaret. She followed me up there. Hiking definitely influenced most of that decision to move up that way, and enjoyed some time in the Adirondacks there. That's on Green Island and Lower Saranac Lake. But quickly decided to go after the New Hampshire 48. I wanted to see those mountains in all different seasons and coming from different trails and that sort of thing. So bagged a lot of those peaks pretty quickly, all of those alone, pretty much from here on out, everything solo again. Margaret's not much of a hiker, don't blame her, she's very fair-skinned, bugs eat her up, so doing most of that alone. But during this time, and largely a lot of this was kind of due to the fact of being alone. You kind of learn you have a little bit extra responsibility. You don't have, as big of a safety net. Kind of the margins are a bit smaller. This was me going up towards Mount Washington. It was a day I woke up late, didn't get to the trailhead till 10 o'clock, and all right, gotta get my stuff, and I'm going up. And by the time I got up above tree line, you're doing the math, and okay, I've done less than a mile an hour for 3 hours, and now I'm here, and I've got 4 more miles to go to the summit, and yeah, I don't think the math works, and that's when I decided to turn around. So that's a huge lesson, is know when to turn around. I would almost go to say is I don't think I could really trust another hiking partner if they haven't had to do that at least once. You really need to know when it's just not going to work out, not today, turn around and hike another day. So finished the New Hampshire 48 there on Mount Jefferson, moved on to the New England 67. This is going on Knife Edge and Katahdin. So finished with that one and quickly came over to the gorgeous Adirondacks. Again, it feels weird to blitz through this year. I did, I want to say 43 to 46 peaks in 5 months or something like that. I was kind of on a tight timeline. I was moving out of Vermont. I knew I had to get them done. So finished on here. I don't know if you probably won't be able to tell. This is a big slide here for finishing 115 in the Northeast. And what I really liked about the Adirondacks is kind of before in the New Hampshire 48, I was using what you can see here on the right. I would almost just use a screenshot of, okay, go up here and at this intersection, make a left. And I really wasn't, I don't know, I would call it kind of dumbed down navigation. With the Adirondacks, I had a map, I had a compass, and while that's not necessarily necessary, it was good to be able to see where I was in relation to the land and have a better sense of things. So with that, my lesson there is just have some wood sense before going out. You don't need to be able to triangulate your position and where you are and all of that, but just having a general idea of how you fit into the land and how that connects to the map. So by this point, I was kind of getting a lot more responsibility in my life, as you can imagine. Things were picking up with work, just with life in general, and I was was kind of at a crossroads of taking on a lot more responsibility in my career, but at the same time I kind of thought, you know, I wouldn't mind doing another long hike. So kind of thought maybe what I'll do, we'll quit my job now, we'll do the Continental Divide Trail, the big bad one, do it while I'm young, and I'll do the PCT when I'm retired. And Margaret said, you know, you might as well just do both at the same time, because you're not going to wait 40 years to do the last one. So on her advice, I did just that. So with that, there's never going to be a perfect time for a long hike, but there's definitely going to be some times that are better than others. So at least in our case, we didn't have a mortgage, we don't have kids, we didn't have a goldfish even, so a pretty good time to go after it. So that started me getting into some training. A lot of that was kind of just prep work, a lot of those Adirondack hikes. Just looking at, if anyone's ever seen Halfway Anywhere, they do a survey every year for a bunch of different long distance trails in the US from hikers that had hiked. So I was looking at this one from the year prior to when I hiked, and you can see, you know, why hikers get off trail. Injuries, the largest one on that, specifically overuse injuries for the most part, stress fractures, all within the feet and legs. Most of those occurring in Colorado and also New Mexico at the start for those heading down. So I figured, avoid a lower leg injury in Colorado, I should be good. So we don't need to get into all the specifics of this, because it's kind of my training log I use. I'm a bit neurotic with it, but basically my goal was increase the chances of finishing by conditioning my legs, preparing my feet, preventing lower back injury, which is something I've dealt with, decreased risk of shoulder dislocation, which I did last week, increasing flexibility. So this is different for everyone, but the biggest thing is this right here, the weighted hike. So, you know, most effective activity to prepare for hiking outside with a heavy pack is to do just that. I know you don't necessarily need to train before doing any of these, but in my opinion, you kind of risk a lot by not doing so, and this is the most effective one you can do. So, getting to the Continental Divide Trail, the CDT is a monster. There's no way around it. You can see here, even just to start, 2,500 to 3,000 miles. Already kind of scratching your head there. The CDT is known as the Choose Your Own Adventure Trail, so there's a lot of sections of this trail where you can go east or you can go west. You can follow the river, you can go through the canyon, you can do a bunch of things. So depending on your route, you can kind of shorten things up, lengthen them. I'd say most people end up around 2,700 miles for the most part. So the start of the CDT is down here at the Crazy Cook Monument, where a surveyor was killed with a hatchet in 1907 by a crazy cook. That pretty much sets the tone for this trail. I mean, it's just like, I don't know where to begin. So that's me, again at the start, thinking, oh dear, this is very different than Georgia. We are not in Georgia anymore. You can see the Chihuahuan High Desert here. Not much out there. You pretty much just walk back to civilization through these barren lands. Another tough thing you deal with on the CDT right from the get-go is navigation. It's never very clear. Anybody blue arrow or yellow arrow? Maybe we'll do hands. Blue arrow. Anybody blue arrow? Yellow arrow? Okay, everyone was wrong. It's actually this path over here. So these are two cow paths, and the trail goes to the left between the bushes. I don't know. So you find yourself off trail all the time. I think Opud asked me earlier today, how often did you get lost? Every day, at least once, you know. So definitely be comfortable with being off trail. Other thing you deal with out there on the CDT is water. It's not great. Definitely some tough water sources to contend with. I think there's another video.
So that's where I'm getting water from, and it's just kind of awkward with everyone. Just watching you. Just a little unsettling.
Yeah, so you and the cows get very friendly. A lot of times they're their own company out there, so it's very welcome. At least for the first 80 miles of the trail, there's a group that stashes waters for hikers. So that's helpful, but I actually didn't run into my first natural water source until mile 150. So that gives you an idea of what water's like out there. So mile 100, getting into Silver City here. This is a good example of what I mean by kind of the choose your own adventure. If you're not familiar, this is far out. It's a mapping app that I would say probably 95% of hikers use at this point. But But you can see here, the red line is the official CDT, the National Scenic Trail CDT. It heads east here into the Black Range. There's pretty much no water. I think maybe 5% of hikers end up taking this route. Most opt for that, I guess, kind of purplish line there through the Gila River. Mostly because, number one, you get water after 150 miles, but two, because it's just extremely scenic. So you can see it's, you know, the choose your own adventure, and what do you mean it's 2,500 to 3,000? You have sections like this that play into that. I mean, even on this screen, we've got red line, teal line, purple, blue line, maybe 4 or 5 different routes through there. But really glad I chose that route. That was a hard thing for me to do, coming from the Appalachian Trail, where, you know, I hiked every mile, every blaze. I got it. You know, I couldn't even fathom leaving the trail. But did just so on this section, and glad I did, because I got to see, you know, the Gila cliff dwellings, make it to the Gila River, just have awesome, gorgeous places to camp. And don't worry, on the CDT, you are never far from kind of barren land. CDT has been described as a pearl necklace strung on a piece of twine, which, you know, you have these highlights and just kind of, I wouldn't call it a drag, but some commuter miles in between those highlights. So this is still pretty to me. It's, you know, so foreign to what I'm used to, but you're never far from that. So made it into Grants, New Mexico, and that's about the time that the world blew up with forest fires. So this was 2022. With all the national forests that basically shut down, it made the last 170 miles in New Mexico unhikeable. So you kind of had to figure out what you needed to do. So some people opted to go home. I'll come back when the fires are done. Good luck. Other people said, well, maybe I'll just hike a road around for 170 miles. So regardless, you got to make the decision that's best for you. For me, that meant skipping around New Mexico for the time being and getting to Colorado, where I could hike again and coming back to finish those miles. So long travel day, but quick trip. Got to Chama, New Mexico, and headed north from Cumbres Pass on May 19th there into Colorado. Quickly found myself in snow. I'm here with 2 others that also opted to jump around. You know, we weren't really prepared for this level of snow. You know, we just come out of New Mexico. We really shouldn't be up here for another 3 weeks. But we're up here anyways. We were eating breakfast in a diner that day before, and we were told, hey, there's a storm coming in. We said, cool, we're going to go in anyways. We know what we're doing. We've hiked before. Oh, went backwards. This is me that night with winds so high that could not put up a tent, couldn't find anywhere to be. I think this is at 12,000 feet. Not a very happy camper, but then the next morning, storm rolled in. You can see shorts, just not prepared in a storm. We really shouldn't be out here in the first place. And then eventually, I think this is one of my last shots of the day here. Yeah, so not a good time to be out there. I think the only cold weather guy had really, besides a quarter zip and my rain jacket, was I was in Walmart 2 days before in New Mexico trying to find some sweatpants. So not a good time. And this was something, this next lesson here, that was told to me by someone that had hiked Everest. And it's one I really like. You get 3 mistakes, the 4th one kills you. That's something I thought about a lot, particularly on that day. And unfortunately, the way this gentleman told me this was, the first mistake is you shouldn't be out there. So you're already down 1. You know, shouldn't be out there. You don't have the appropriate equipment, at least in my case. No snow gear, no ice axe, no crampons, no micro spikes. Storm comes in, shouldn't be out there. You know, you really think about it, especially in like that video clip. If you roll an ankle, if something happens, you can't get yourself out, you're in a bad spot. So that's something I thought about a lot, especially pretty much from this point forward. I'm entirely solo on the CDT. The longest amount of time I kind of spent hiking with someone else, and not necessarily physically hiking, but hey, we're seeing each other in the morning, we're gonna camp here together at night, I'll see you at lunch tomorrow. And longest time after this was 2 days I spent with somebody. Every other time I was just alone, 3, 4+ days at a time. It was so common I couldn't even remember. So after that snowstorm, bailed out. I got a sister in Denver. I was able to hitch my way there and get some walking in and finally made it. So spent 2 weeks drying out, sleeping with the cat, basically letting snow melt. She actually had a Stairmaster in her gym overlooking the mountains from Denver, so you can kind of see the snow, and I was still getting some training in the meantime. But came back to where I got off 2 weeks later, a lot less snow, and decided to tackle the trail from where I left off. So again, the forward app you can kind of see here, you've got the official CET in red, and then what's known as the creek cutoff in brown here. This is one where, to me, it's really just a shortcut. It's not, oh, it's very scenic on the creek, or hey, if you don't want to hike through real tough mountains and tough conditions, take the creek cutoff. I wanted to hike the CET. That's kind of what I came out to do, is to have those challenges. One particular challenge through here is that you're above 11,000 feet for over 100 miles on this section. 11,000 feet there. So quite a bit. And again, solo this entire time. I'm just a kid from Pittsburgh. I mean, 11,000 feet, dear Lord. So it was a lot, but it really was worth it. Gorgeous views. You can see just how much snow has melted from a lot of these peaks in that time. But I'm really glad I did tackle that. But at the same time, it was tough every day of, you know, okay, where am I going to be come afternoon? Is there going to be a lightning storm? Am I going to be off this ridge before, you know, that rolls in? Where's a bailout I can do? There's kind of a lot of trail map, I guess I would call it. And this was something I wrote in my journal at some point during that section, was I really just need a break from the responsibilities of taking care of myself. Just felt like the margins were very thin up there. It's, you know, I haven't seen someone for 4 days, and, you know, now I've got a storm rolling in and I'm at, you know, 12,500 feet or something. So basically I kind of reached this, quite literally a crossroads where you reach this point of collegiate east or collegiate west, two different sections. The official CDT is that collegiate west, stays up high, deep snow, storms, pretty remote. Collegiate east, in comparison, lower elevation, you know, closer to civilization, better weather for the most part. So I opted for collegiate east. That was a tough decision to me, because I'm usually one that if a harder option exists, that's what I want to go for, you know. Maybe that's a problem I have, but I'm really glad I did. I'll read this quickly here, journal entry from that time. It's days like today that really make me enjoy all of this. I got the feeling like the last week or two were a bit of a slog and was feeling a bit disgruntled, or at least unfulfilled with hiking. But today really rejuvenated my whole attitude. I can't wait for the rest of this section. I'm so glad to be on this route. Anyways, I'm turning in for the night. What a great vacation day of 27.6 miles and all with a 9 a.m. start. Couldn't be more pleased, happy to be out here, and so grateful for this spectacular day and night. So, I mean, like I said, I was one to always choose the harder route, but I really liked being down here instead of up there for a few days. So what I learned through that, the only rules that exist are your own. Sometimes you need to break those rules to accommodate changing circumstances. Maybe a little bit more benign, but something else I learned very quickly on the CDT. There are no shelters, lodges, lean-tos, nothing of that sort. I got very familiar with my tent quite quickly, and I became very acquainted with condensation and how much I despised it. So this is just a quick little tip, I guess. You know, here it didn't rain that night. This is all just wet from dew. If you just stick to those trees just a little bit, you're going to have a dry, wonderful, comfortable sleep. You don't have to dry your things out the next day. So as far as you know, camping goes, learn what makes a good campsite for you and be selective. Question I get a lot, especially from my mother: how do you get used to sleeping outside alone in the woods? You just do it enough. That's my only tip. And even then, sometimes it does feel like there's some monsters out there. You just gotta roll with it. So, going north, I know I said, hey, I usually want to choose the harder option, but you know, in this case I didn't. Well, in this case, I did. This is Mount Elbert. It's the second highest peak in the contiguous U.S., highest peak in Colorado. Climbed Mount Elbert, 14,440 there. Then went on to Gray's Peak, highest point on the CDT proper. Again, that Mount Elbert is kind of a side trail. Hey, for me, let's add the mileage, let's do it, at least at the time. Again, through Colorado, beautiful hiking, brutal hiking. Eventually getting to northern Colorado, Parkview Mountain there. Very happy to be on that mountain because it was the last time the CDT would be above 12,000 feet. By this point, I was really slowing down. I was beat up. I was destroyed. I was lethargic. I was worn out, plain and simple. Got off trail towards the end of July, back to Denver to see family that was coming in. We were all kind of linking up for the holiday. And that's when I learned that I was testing with Giardia. So, sick. I probably was carrying Giardia through Colorado for 200, maybe 300 miles. So tough hiking, and even tougher with that going on. Lesson there, don't jeopardize your hike. Treat your damn water. Don't be an idiot. Just to drive that point home, treat your damn water. But got taken care of, got dropped off where I left off. Kind of a theme here, returning where I once left there, but quickly finding myself in Wyoming there. I think it's always funny, people wonder what those state crossings look like. Just a license plate nailed to a tree, welcome to Wyoming. So getting to Riverside, Wyoming, population 59. This is actually, if you can believe it, one of my favorite photos from these hikes, and I'll read this caption here to describe why. So, the man checking me in at the campground, Leroy, was super nice and was telling me about the big news in town. They were repaving the road. Well, around 6:30, on my walk to dinner, I see Leroy in the shaky gravel driveway of the campground with a lawn chair and a beer, just watching the crew bathe. Poetic. I strive for that appreciation of simplicity. So, really admired, like I said, just the simplicity of that. Hey, it's a nice sunny day. I'm going to watch these guys work and just relax. So, lesson there, learn to appreciate the simplicity of a sunny day and dry clothes. I still try to bring that back to days, especially, work day, things might be rough, and you think, yeah, but I am dry and I'm not at 12,000 feet in a lightning storm, so it's not that bad. But leaving Wyoming, you find yourself in the Great Basin. Really spectacular section to me just because of how nothingness, how much there is almost. I mean, it felt like we were hiking across the ocean. You can see in this photo here on the left, there's a person way out there. I took that photo because I was like, oh my gosh, a person, how about that? That's amazing, that's a feature. A lot of people here like to really kind of rip through this section, go fast, and do something what's called the 24-hour challenge. So essentially seeing how far you can hike in 24 hours. And I asked a fellow that was finishing his Triple Crown what he thought about that, and he said this: I'm on my third once-in-a-lifetime hike. I'm not going to screw that up by doing something stupid like seeing how many miles I can hike in a day. So I kind of found myself almost with the same opinion. I did Connecticut. That was fun. That was cool. I don't need to do that again. At the same time, part of me does really enjoy those types of challenges. So I would just say, know what you're risking with that. I know for me, I couldn't really come back and finish this should something happen on an injury. So just keep that in mind if you are going to maybe do something with a little bit extra risk. But getting up northern Wyoming now, getting into one of my favorite sections of the entire Triple Crown. This is the Wind River Range. Absolutely spectacular area. This is Circa the Towers route. Again, this is not the official CDT actually. I'm sure the other trail is beautiful, but I just don't, why wouldn't you want to go through and see this instead? Maybe it adds a few extra miles. I don't know. Go see it. Again, really, really beautiful photos through there, and eventually getting into Idaho. So at this point, afternoon storms were becoming more and more common. I'd end up, you'd be hearing from there all day, chasing you, and you'd be thinking, is it going to get me? Is it not going to get me? Is it going to get me? And just the weather out there, a lot of times you are hiking on the geographic divide in North America. So you can see in this video here just the difference a hiker on the left side of this ridge might be having versus somebody on the right. I mean, it really is that stark sometimes. And then especially just in that photo on the left, I'd hate to be under that thing. I know I have been a few times. So with that, plan for the worst, but don't live in that mindset. So, as far as I always think of the storms, if it happens, awesome, we're prepared, we made sure we were in a safe spot. If it doesn't, we put ourselves through all that stress for nothing. Worrying about it didn't prevent it from happening. So be aware of it, but don't let it really, impact your mindset or anything. This here is kind of I guess an example of how I plan out things. You can just see I've got mileage markers for the different towns and the distance between those two. It just takes a lot of guesswork out of things of, okay, how far is that next section? And a lot of this too is just, just have, okay, I ran out of toothpaste. I need toothpaste this trip. We can't go 8 days without toothpaste, so definitely get that. And I think it's important to keep track of that only because you get into town and there's rotisserie chickens and chocolate milk, and then you're trying to make sure you can get this stuff and get it right back. And oh my gosh, how far was that section? I gotta have 4 days of food, or was it 5? So write it all down, just keep a log. I just had some stuff on there, body, if I needed a blister to drain, something like that, just, hey, remember to do that, have a little checklist. Stay organized, don't get caught by surprise. So getting into northern Montana there, this is kind of a scene that you'd be very familiar with, a lot of miles of this. This is me getting a little frustrated, ranting thing for a bit.
That drives me insane. It's slow hikers that don't let you pass. Ma'am, do you mind? And if I just ease by, maybe?
Very, very common on trail with the cows there. But like I said, you're great friends. I mean, she was probably the first person I had seen in a few days, and she led me right to the water, swear to God. So getting up into the Bob Marshall Wilderness here at this point, and then Glacier National Park. Glacier, another top 3 favorite place I've ever hiked through. I mean, really spectacular, absolutely amazing. I love this photo on the left here. You can see there's like a little chipmunk or something on that rock just staring over the valley. I love that. But really beautiful. And then getting to the border here, port closed, we don't care, go right through there and making it to Canada there. So for me, some unfinished business back down south. Got back down to Chamba, New Mexico, that Cumbres Pass where I started north, and then headed south to fill in those wildfire miles. So back into New Mexico, really glad I decided to do that. Everyone said, oh, northern New Mexico, you're gonna love it, it's great. Some people opted, like I said, hey, we're gonna just walk a road around and keep hiking. Other people, they got to Canada, they said, hey, that part of the trail was closed when I came through, I'm good, I don't need to do it. So I decided to go back, I'm really glad I did. Beautiful views, really cool area, just such an alien landscape to anything I had really ever seen. Mount Taylor here, getting back to Grants, New Mexico, where again the world blew up, a few days prior, I guess, and finished at the Domino's Pizza where I got lunch the day before all the wildfires. So, I mean, I wouldn't have had it any other way, to be honest. You can kind of see the start and finish there. But like I said, I mean, at least for me, to find your own finish, for me that meant filling in all those miles that were missed for other people. They didn't feel the need to. And hey, if it's a Domino's Pizza where I finished, awesome, I love it. So moving on to the Pacific Crest Trail, this is the very next hiking season, so kind of 2 trails back to back. Pacific Crest Trail, 2,650 miles through California, Oregon, and Washington. I'll take a little bit here to talk about gear. As I said, you can kind of see the Vermont party pack there versus what I took on the AT. I was very ultra light on the AT. I weighed everything. I had my Band-Aids weighed out. I had my ibuprofen weighed out, my Imodium. I was cutting paper off the Band-Aids to make them lighter. I got quite carried away. I had a travel-sized tube of toothpaste that I would say unashamedly, I did not use that whole thing on the entire hike. So, yeah, we had some cavities after that. But I was also extremely uncomfortable, especially given the conditions of a February 6th start date. Just didn't really have a good buffer for the conditions I was experiencing. In contrast, kind of as you find your preferences and kind of where you feel like carrying things. This is basically the kit that I ended up taking for the Pacific Crest Trail. You can see a lot more clothing there on the left. I definitely prioritized having proper clothing for different conditions. I had a sleeping bag as opposed to a quilt. I had a sleeping bag that was probably a lot warmer than most people would have carried. I learned that I definitely sleep very cold, and I also want to have the ability to sleep up high and not be cold if I need to. There's nothing worse than, you're sitting there going, okay, I was cold at 8,000 feet last night, and tonight I'm going up to 12. I don't think it's going to be warmer. So I'd like to be able to have that kind of wiggle room of, hey, I can camp up high, down low, it doesn't matter, a few extra ounces. But lesson here for anybody, it's easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole on, the weights and stuff, and is this one better than this one?
Gear won't get you through a thru-hike, unfortunately. So it can help in some ways, but ultimately it's really up to you. You can also see two different forms of water treatment here. One last time, treat your damn water, folks. And of course, at the same time, with in contrast to the AT, when I was all ultralight, I'd also carry a watermelon up a mountain. I mean, So lesson there, if it makes all the difference to you, carry the extra weight. So if that's a watermelon, go for it, but don't be too concerned about weight. Another strong stance I have, these are pants, actually the ones on the top are what I wore on the PCT in pretty good shape. You can see the color difference between a new pair, but if you hate sunscreen, spiky desert plants cutting your shins, dirt and grime in your sleeping bag, mosquitoes sucking every drop of blood out of your soul. If you don't like those things, get pants, wear pants, I'm telling you. I don't know if I recommend them for the AT, I'm undecided, but the Western trails, pants all the way. So here you can see me March 23rd in my pants at the Mexico border on the PCT. By this point, I mean, we've got quite a few miles underneath us, but I'm still sitting here going, can I actually do this? That's a long way, 2,600 miles. So I think the difference here is realizing that's just a thought. Normal to have that thought, let that go, it doesn't mean anything. Don't give those negative thoughts any weight at all. So starting off here, mile 10, very excited. I know at this time a lot of hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail, and a lot of them that's their first trail, and it was interesting to see folks kind of making the same mistakes that I remember making at that time. We've got to get going and move, and let's hurry up, let's get 20 miles a day, all that stuff. It's a long game, take your time, don't get caught up in the rush. Your body needs time to adapt. You're not getting great sleep out here, you're doing a lot more exercise than you're used to. It's going to take time to get into a flow of things, and it will come. So don't rush into things and get hurt at the start. But if anyone's not familiar, 2022 was a huge snow year. I'm sorry, 23 was a huge snow year on the PCT. Record snowfall year, so this is Mount San Jacinto in the distance. A lot of snowfall that kind of messed things up. I had a very early start date. The PCT works on a permit system. It's pretty much, you choose from a date, and if you're one of the last ones to choose, you don't get a favorable one. So in my case, there was just not enough, or too much snow to kind of keep going north without missing miles, and I was really big on getting those miles in between all points. So in this case, opted to chill out a little bit, find a hot tub, hang out, let snow melt, and ultimately kind of again, choose a decision that's best for you. Jump up north to a more desert area, and was going to hike south very slowly back towards, if you can see that, Mount San Jacinto near that mile 152 area. That was kind of the pinch point for snow, at least down in Southern California. So met a lot of like-minded individuals that also wanted to continue hiking and fill in any gaps, not have anything missing. So really great group here. All of them from all over really. I think only two actually, these two right up here with the beard, the fellow above him, they knew each other at the start. Everyone else started solo. I ended up linking up with Peter here. You can see Peter, older fellow from the UK. So one benefit to all that snow is a lot of water, and as far as that goes, a lot of wildflowers blooming. So it was very cool to be able to hike through Southern California through a section that is normally pretty desolate. Not something that most people get to do. So this is walking on the LA Aqueduct. As part of this tactic of jumping up and hiking through the desert to let snow melt, I kind of had to really pace myself. I wanted to, at this point, I know I can do 20 miles and this and that, but it doesn't help my situation. I need time. So I'm really just trying to kind of be productive and waste time efficiently, I guess. So a lot of long lunches, siestas, that sort of thing. And in that, I learned to embrace a slower pace when it's needed. Quickly found myself in snow, if you can believe it. Some quite extreme snowdrifts there on the highway. Peter and I, we stuck together and kind of made our way south through the snow. You can see the difference just even a week makes on this section here of road. I mean, so the tactic was working. It was still, I mean, you're still going to find yourself in snow, but it's definitely less and less of an issue each day. This is coming back towards that Mount San Jacinto. At this point, people were kind of mixed reviews on this. I heard a lot of don't go, it's scary, it's dangerous, it's, you know, it's still impassable, all of that. Peter and I went anyways, it was fine. So here we are at the top of Mount San Jacinto, and actually, shortly after this photo, a huge group showed up to the summit of this mountain, 23 people that all set off together. They were all very nervous about this mountain. They all grouped up to kind of take this on. To me, you should really, if you need that many folks to be with you to feel comfortable, you probably shouldn't be out there. Don't depend on others to feel comfortable and safe. You can find yourself alone out here very quickly. If it's not a section you would be comfortable being in solo, then I don't recommend going. But from there, Peter and I continue hiking northward now through the desert. If you're a little bit turned around, don't worry, totally normal with this. There's a lot of hopping through here. But Peter was going to meet his wife in Vegas, and I needed to fly out to go officiate a wedding, so we stuck together through here. Did some laundry, stopped in Vegas for a night, and then I went off to officiate a friend's wedding back east. So came back a month later, continued walking north, reaching Kennedy Meadows here. By this point, Kennedy Meadows is kind of known as the gateway into the Sierra Mountains. Again, record snowfall year for those mountains, and a lot of different reviews on what things were looking like. Some comments, and I know I've referenced comments a few times on that Far Out app. There's basically waypoints where folks can leave comments. Through the Sierra, it was a pretty treacherous description. It was, you know, hey, crampons, you know, probably maybe some ropes, some ice screws, things of that nature. I went in anyways. Found some snow, and then found a lot more snow, and got to yet another storm and said, yeah, there's a lot of snow out there. Those people are right. So bailed down Trail Pass to Cottonwood Pass and got into town. I'll read here what I got here at the bottom, ultimately what kind of influenced my decision here. But there's a lot of factors to consider in this section, particularly as a solo hiker. High elevation, increased exposure, slow snow travel, long food carries, continuing storms, flooding soon to come. Simply put, the next 400 miles ahead will be a proper beatdown that I'm not looking to partake in this year. After hiking 1,500 miles ahead to the Canadian border, I plan on coming back down to enjoy a victory lap through what is arguably the best part of one of the world's greatest long-distance hiking trails in its prime season. Not a bad way to finish things off. So, lesson there, see it for yourself, read those comments, and take that into account, but go and check it out. So, jumped around that snow section, again, a lot of jumping, I know. So even when I decided to go from here, Truckee, California, was told a lot of snow, really bad, don't jump there, keep going backwards. There was snow, but not too bad. You can see actually one other person here. I met two folks that did the same thing as I did, jumped up to where there was snow, but we're not at super high elevation here. It's all pretty manageable. Things I'm comfortable with, some trail finding, all of that. Snow petered out after probably 50 miles, and things were okay. So, I mean, just with that again, see it for yourself. You know, I kind of got burned a few times, and other times, you know, found myself ahead, if you will. So, keep those comments in the back of your mind, but you really do need to check things out. So, got to Northern California, reaching Oregon, really putting down some miles through here, and not getting beat up, but you know, you just get wore out as the hike goes on. So with this, I would just say make recovery a priority. If you were going to run a marathon every day for the next 30 days, you could probably eat a little bit better, sleep a little bit more, take care of your feet, those sort of things. So just really making that a priority, I think, is important. Treat yourself as an athlete out there. Another tip, if you're staying in a motel, take that trash bag out of the trash can, fill it with ice. You got yourself a nice foot bath there. You can cool down a Diet Coke as well. So it's really, really good tip there. But getting into Crater Lake, Oregon, crossing the Columbia River over to Washington, Goat Rocks Wilderness, really pretty hiking here, and then quickly finding myself not far off from the Canadian border. By this point, a lot of wildfire smoke spilling over. Not unusual for that time of year at all, but was starting to complicate things. So quickly I reached the Canadian border, celebrated, and then got out of there. Very grateful I did so. That section, actually just a few days later, a new fire came in and shut down that portion of the trail. So unfortunately for a lot of people, they never got to see the terminus that year. So with that, you've got all the time in the world until you don't. So keep moving. I think towards the end, people tend to get a little, I don't know, you kind of want to draw things out of it. We've got time. Keep it moving because it can be over quick. On my way back down to fill in those Sierra miles, those snow miles, stopped off in Reno and had some issues. So I was asked by a barber if he could touch up my mustache, and I thought, you know what, I don't think I've ever done that, let's go for it. It didn't work out well, so we decided to hack it all off, and I went into the Sierra mustacheless. Any friends I had made to this point, never recognized again. I was undercover. That ended up actually becoming my trail name, undercover. So really beautiful section of the Sierra. I'm so glad I made that decision to jump around. Like I said, hiking through the Sierra in its prime season. This was September. By this point, everyone's in school. It's not very crowded. It was really, really gorgeous. I'm glad I decided to go through there. You can hear some other awesome photos there. So one thing I did come across was this actually one morning. A woman was hiking, and there's a blowdown here crossing the trail. You can see where a branch kind of broke off and had a spike, and she just never noticed that, went stuck under it, and it pierced her skull and her forehead. So helped her out there, got her cleaned up, alcohol wipes, some butterfly bandages, some gauze, Neosporin, and helped her there. So with that, I just say be prepared to have the responsibility of not just yourself, but someone else as well, because that can happen at any time. You never know what you can walk into. So with that, reaching Mount Whitney area, this is technically not on the PCT, but it's a must-do, in my opinion. You're right there. So climbing Mount Whitney, highest point in the contiguous U.S., taking that creepy photo there on the right. But if you've got no one else hiking with you, that's what you got to do. But this is a nice overlook. If you can, probably can't read that. It says, "To be opened by Triple Crown hikers only." So I did, you see the photos of people that have done the Triple Crown. It's always a Burger King crown, and I thought, Margaret, can you please send me a Burger King crown? Well, she decided to do an arts and crafts project herself and pack that away. So I knew there was a crown in there. I'm not sure what it looked like, but you can see here a journal entry I've got from that night that I'll read for you all. I didn't spend much time at the top of Whitney on account of night approaching, but standing up there in the snow with no one else around was the first time it really, truly set in that this whole thing is soon coming to a close. I hiked back to the PCT under the stars and just finally crawled into my sleeping bag at 10:30. One final night, just 22 miles from the end. And I'll read this here. This is the only photo I had from that day, but I started hiking at 4:30 the next morning. There were miles to do. It was a bit surreal to be just a few hours away from finishing. Besides some extra dirt and grime, I looked like every other hiker out for the long weekend. About 3 miles from the end, I was moving so fast I was running. Then I was running. I blazed down the switchbacks, past 2 hikers, and finally brought this entire journey to a close when I reached the same point where I bailed off 86 days ago due to snow. Trail pass, mile 746.5 of the PCT. It's been a hectic year on trail with record snowfall, big storms, and fires, but it all worked out. It always seems to happen that way in the end. So there's my finish date, September 4th, 2022, 53 weeks ago from today. So you can see that crown Margaret's got for me there. It's actually an elevation profile of all the different trails, the AT, the CDT, and the PCT on there. Very, very unique, very special. There's kind of a start-finish photo there of how things worked out. But some major lessons, really, to just kind of wrap it all up, I think, is the trail will break you down before it builds you up, so be prepared. Through hiking is a marathon of marathons. Adjust your mindset to match that undertaking. And circumstances and your attitudes towards them can change with frightening speed. You can control one of those. But finally, while my own 2 feet have carried me over 7,500 miles, I've had a lot of help along the way there. So whether it's rides into town on a rainy day, a cooler full of ice cold drinks in the Chihuahuan high desert, a backyard to sleep in Oregon, or dinner with strangers there in New Mexico, all the hundreds of thousands of hours that trail crews put in every year to make these kind of hikes possible. and just the people you meet, they really do make all the difference, all the friends along the way. So with that, any questions? Go ahead. It is, yes. So there is a bike route that corresponds somewhat with the trail itself. Sometimes they overlap at different highway routes into and out of town. So a lot of times you'll find with the CDT, as you get closer to a town, the trail just kind of drops off into a dirt road that leads to a highway, and you got to do a 10-mile road walk into a town. That's usually when you see some bikers on there. Yep, very similar. So a lot of the low routes out of, say, Colorado, if you want to be out of the mountains, a lot of times kind of your bailout options go to that mountain bike route.
Any other question over here?
Yep.
I have a question. Why did you decide on northbound to start all three?
You know, with the Appalachian Trail, I like the idea of taking spring semester off and having basically from the end of finals in December up until the start of fall semester to hike. And with the other, I guess the other two, I mean, the Continental Divide just worked out that way with work. It was, well, I'm getting out now, and if we've got somebody that can fill for me, then see you guys, I'm out of here, so.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Did you have a different steer's hat for each of the trails?
I had the same hat for the AT, and then actually the CDT and PCT was the same exact hat. Yeah, that hat helped a lot with hitchhikes, if you can believe it. You know what I mean? I had some Yinzer Steeler fans gave me a surprise.
He's got 4.2.
Oh, very awesome.
I think a lot of people would say they don't have the time to do one of these trails. Could you just give an idea how you found the time to do these three? Because you don't look retired yet.
No, I found the time by being unemployed. Making myself unemployed was the answer to that. So, I mean, in between semesters at school, that was kind of an easy one. I loaded up on a bunch of summer classes and courses while in school to where it was, hey, graduate a semester early, or you can do this other thing. So I actually got with my advisor on that pretty quick. I said, I think I want to do this, and we figured out a plan to make it work. And with the other two, just see you guys, I'm out of here, and we'll find out where I land in 2 years after these are done. So.
So the question is, what are you doing now?
I was very fortunate to return with the same company that I left from when I was in Vermont. They're actually headquartered in Pittsburgh, and that's where Margaret and I moved to, and luckily they had a spot for me upon my return, so very grateful.
What's your next trail?
You know, I get asked that, and I don't think I'll ever hike more than 1,000 miles ever again. I say that, but there is the Te Aurora in New Zealand that's 2,000 miles. I've got some interest, but a lot of these, I mean, it'll be years and years and years before I do that. I would like to check out the Northville Placid Trail, maybe, and then also I would say probably the Superior Hiking Trail. Those are two that kind of interest me. Shorter lengths, you know, and that's something I'm more leaning for. I'm not looking to kind of blow up my life again and do another reset. I don't think Margaret's looking forward to that either anytime soon. So.
Okay, Wranglers, are they cotton?
You know, I actually don't know. I mean, it's not a jean. It's actually an interesting. It's ATG is the brand. Actually, I've got 4 pairs because I kind of got burned before with that sun hoodie I wore. Different shirt for each trail, the blue shirt. But yeah, I actually don't know. I don't think it's much cotton in there. Actually, it's some type of synthetic with some spandex in there.
Time for one more question. Anybody else? Okay. Nice presentation. Thank you. Program. Have a nice evening, folks, and hope to see you again at our next meeting in October. Thank you.